What's up, everybody? Don't forget to like and share. Like and share. Brick House Nutrition, baby. Force. Pumped. Let's do this. Don't forget to like and share. Don't forget to like and share. All right. Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. It's Monday, February 26th, one day away from Michigan. All right. We're going to talk about that today. We'll look forward ahead till Michigan, but we have to preview South Carolina since I was on my little road trip doing a little tour. I'll tell you about it. I'm going to give you a little bit of an assessment, which I got to be honest, I'm a little bit surprised about, but not really. I guess not. If you look at the data, it's very misleading. And then when you speak to these people in person and you're like going all over the place looking and trying to root for a certain person, the fact that you can't find them in the heart of where you're supposed to be able to find them should be pretty telling. All right. So obviously, let's look backwards and let's look at what happened in South Carolina first. Okay. Obviously, Donald Trump beat Nikki Haley badly in her own home state. The polls were not a miss. There's people who are saying they're polling misses don't know how to read polls or are lying. There's a little thing at the top of Real Clear Politics. It says learn more. It's an article from Sean Trendy. You should probably read it, and that will tell you how to read polls. Okay? Because there are a lot of people who don't know what polls do, what they mean, what you can glean from them. Thank God I've been going all over the country giving speeches about that exactly. But you don't have to catch one of those speeches to learn anything. You can watch Inside the Numbers Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every week, unless, of course, I'm traveling and the show is canceled like it was on Friday. All right. Again, if you like the videos, don't forget to like them. Share them far and wide. Public polling project is up. I had a crazy idea that maybe we'll do Michigan one more time before the primary. I had that crazy idea when I was not thinking about the practical realities of traveling and over the weekend. And I thought maybe I'll put one together real quick Sunday. But by the time I crunched the data, even if we were able to poll people that quickly, which we can, by the time I crunch the data, it's going to be primary day. It might as well be an exit poll at that point, right? So we'll just steer to the plan. And the plan is obviously continue to push towards the goal of getting the national campaign funded and done. And then Georgia is coming up. It's not a Super Tuesday state. We may do something with Super Tuesday, but I'd like a final Georgia poll instead of one now. That could change in a week or so. A couple things could change it. One is the results, obviously, of Michigan. And then, of course, the results of Super Tuesday could absolutely change it. There is big news following Nikki Haley's big South Carolina loss, and that is the last remaining support that she had from Republicans, big support from never Trumpers who are willing to write big checks. Listen, you can't confuse the Democrats that are donating to her, even low dollar or big dollar. You cannot confuse them with the never Trump support that she's had from Republican donors. And that's been the minority since after New Hampshire. That's the truth. And we know that. Great article by Derek over well, I'm not sure they put it up as an article, but if you subscribe to their newsletter, we went over some of it on the show last week. But Derek from Decision Desk wrote something that was incredibly interesting, and I can elaborate on some of that. So now that the Koch brothers and Americans for Prosperity are out, and I'm going to tell you a funny story about my speech on Saturday. Now that they are out, that leaves Democratic donors, one in particular from Silicon Valley, who just wrote her a $250,000 check to the PAC SFA fund, which is run by a guy named Mark Harris, not to be confused with the Mark Harris who was running for Congress in North Carolina, who I just talked to on Saturday. Not to be confused with him. It's a totally different guy. He was a Rubio never Trumper when Rubio got creamed. And this is what he does. All right. He knows a lot of big donor people. However, the Americans for Prosperity bailing, the news that they are bailing on Nikki Haley is big. They have been running ads for her since, even though they didn't technically endorse her until New Hampshire, they've been running ads for her since before Iowa. And we talked about these ads. These were ads that said, Donald Trump drives Democrats to the polls. Don't nominate him because then Democrats are going to vote. We have another choice in Nikki Haley, as if that's going to depress only Democratic turnout. First of all, Democrats are going to vote anyway. It's a sad ass argument to make. Nominate someone because we want lower turnout. And that's been a big part of my pitch to people as I've been going all over the place. Aren't you sick and tired of like biting your nails and, oh my God, I hope black people didn't vote. I hope Hispanics didn't vote. I hope young people didn't vote. That is sad ass shit. Pardon my French. That is some sad ass shit. How about I want a ton of these people who are non-voters and low propensity voters to vote for the first time in a very long time, since they favor us 2-1. If you were a Republican, wouldn't you rather that be the case? And all of the money that's being wasted right now, because it is being wasted, targeting Democrats who would rather vote against Donald Trump than vote for Joe Biden because it's a unique opportunity. It's an unpopular president, and many in his own party don't even like him. So particularly rich white people, affluent, educated, general election Democrats, which make up, if we put this up here, I can tell you, that makes up at least 15% of Nikki Haley's total 39.5. At least. From the precinct level data that we've been going over, which we will show you. Almost half of Nikki Haley's vote, as we can discern at the moment, is not Republican primary vote. If any of you need more to convince you that when you see this, it will be conclusive. We've been doing it in Iowa. We've been doing it in New Hampshire. We just did it in South Carolina. We've been doing it secretly for weeks. The precinct level data is very clear. The black belt counties that we went over in our preview did not vote for Nikki Haley. That's not where the Democratic votes came from. The Democratic votes came from, for those of us who are in book club, Kevin Phillips. We've been talking about the old urban Democrat coalition that was basically the ancestors of the slave aristocratic class. Slave-owning aristocratic class. Those are the counties where Nikki Haley's votes came from. And now, they targeted bigger areas like those counties, the aristocratic counties, but they definitely hit people in some of these other very low population black counties in the Piedmont and upcountry where there are largely well-to-do white voters. Listen, about half, 15% of that 39.5, comfortably, I could say, are voters who are general election Biden voters who don't like Biden. They're kind of like iffy on him, but they'd vote for him in a general election. They really just, the hell with it. They didn't participate in the South Carolina Democratic primary, as you can see from the numbers. And they thought, you know what, I'd rather vote against Trump than vote for Biden. Now, they'll vote for Biden anyway in a general election. The rest of them, which makes up about 15 to 20% of the electorate in South Carolina overall. The rest of them are Republican voters who want another choice other than Trump. He would have beaten her about 76 to 24, roughly, without these voters. I'm trying to give you the most likely scenario. Let's just call it 75-25. But it's really closer to 80-20. Let's say of those voters, they're going to go and vote for Donald Trump in the general election anyway. They just want an alternative. It would be nice for them if there was an alternative. They would rather. How do we know if you need any more proof? Half of the votes for Nikki Haley on Saturday said they told exit pollsters in AP Vocast. Half of them said they voted for Joe Biden in 2020, roughly half. Of the independents who came out, because, oh, Rich, it's only 4% Democrat. Only people who don't understand campaigns believe that that's evidence of something. There are behavioral Republicans and behavioral Democrats. There are very, very few people in this country who are independent, who are truly independent. They only make up about 10 to 15% of the electorate. That's it. In a South Carolina Republican primary, the independents who vote are never 60% left leaning. That should tell you everything you need to know. And still, even with that, there were two records that were set on Saturday. The one is Donald Trump. Again, every primary we've been in, Donald Trump has set a record, including when he wasn't on the ballot. Okay. There has been some historical thing that has happened. And that is really, listen, if the Guy Bensons of the world were right and these primaries were demonstrating something about Trump's weakness, then South Carolina would be in play. You're in the general election. Only an idiot would believe that. If I have to spend time wasting time during the show to convince you of that, then I don't know what to tell you. Go watch MSNBC or CNN, because I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to waste time teaching you the basics. South Carolina is not in play. What I'm telling you happened. What they are showing, if anything, these primaries, is Biden's weakness. This is a twofold win for Democrats, and they're going to keep spending this money, and that's all Nikki Haley has left now. But the low dollar donors, right? That's Act Blue and other networks like that we told you about weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks ago when we told you about Primary Pivot. They encourage grassroots who hate Joe Biden, who don't think he's progressive enough, who are really mad at him over Palestine and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Maybe they're mad about the Russo-Ukrainian war, whatever it may be. They're pissed about Joe Biden he's not doing enough on climate change. And they have these huge, vast networks where they can encourage people to vote, to donate. And that is where she gets her low-dollar donors from to the campaign. She's not getting them from Republican voters. That's just true. We know that. And the PACs like SFA Fund get it from big, rich Silicon lefties and Wall Street lefties and globalists. By the way, we're going to talk to Larry Schweikart in a little bit about his new book. It's perfect timing. And about South Carolina. But it's not only dirtying up the data, which is the first obvious gain or the first obvious goal is a sabotage mission here. It's not only dirtying up the Republican data that's going to cost them tens of millions of dollars to fix. That's not only it. It's masking the weaknesses that Joe Biden has in these primaries that you're not seeing, because these voters, instead of participating in their own primary or the primary that they lean to, are instead engaging in what Rush Limbaugh called Operation Chaos at a massive scale. The reason this is working is also for two reasons. We have never seen an Operation Chaos funded to this extent. Never. Tens of millions of dollars, a mailer every 2 days, a text message every few hours is going to produce something. It's going to get that message out. But also, it's a unique situation, a unique opportunity for an Operation Chaos to work, because there is a president, an incumbent president, there are many of his voters who don't want to vote for him. They're not excited to go run out and vote for Joe Biden in the primary. They know they're stuck with him, but they just don't want to vote for him in the primary. So instead, they say, I'll screw with the Republicans. And again, we know this is happening. They're celebrating openly on Twitter about it. I retweeted them yesterday. We know again, we're going to show the precinct data, but you shouldn't have to be convinced like that to see it. It should jump right out at you. If Donald Trump was any other Republican candidate, this Operation Chaos would cost him the nomination. But every state that we go to, he keeps putting up record numbers of voters. We've never seen anything like this. Before I recap on all of them, in South Carolina, there were two major records set. Laura said, but what about the fastest call? There has been an instant call in South Carolina before, both on the Republican and the Democratic sides. Trump was it. And Joe Biden obviously just had an instant call. So it's not like Iowa, which is a caucus, and that's typically why it takes longer. And that's why it was so incredible that the call was instant. But on Saturday in South Carolina, obviously Donald Trump broke the record for the most votes received in a South Carolina presidential primary, period. He more than doubled his vote share, or will by this time. And then the second record is, and I went back and looked to make sure that we were right, on a candidate that was not suspended, a campaign that was not a suspended campaign, because other candidates running for president have lost their home states before by rather big margins, but not when they were an active candidate, not when they were unsuspended, if you want lack of a better word. Nikki Haley is going to go down in history as the biggest home state loser ever. Marco Rubio lost his state as well. He did not lose it by 20 points. Over 20 points. Marco Rubio lost his home state by about half this margin. It was a humiliating loss, and it is the stuff political funerals are made out of. But she's not running to be a Republican leader anymore. Which brings me to this before I bring on Larry. Even the Rhino donor class is starting to hate Nikki Haley. Not starting, they hate her. The biggest applause I got of the night was when I read the results of the primary. These are people, many of them, including the guest speaker, other than me, did not support Donald Trump for president immediately. He later rescinded his endorsement and backed Donald Trump, but he did not initially endorse or support Donald Trump for the nomination. People's behavior over time has caused even many in the donor class to decide that this is not what they want to do or what they want to see going forward. Working with Democrats the way that she is, for people who don't know this organization and the people who are behind this effort to get Democrats to vote for Nikki Haley, their resumes include meddling and rigging elections in South Africa, other African nations, Romania, other shitholes in third world countries around Europe and Asia. This is what they do. And incredibly, they've never been able to do it with so much money before. Digital targeting, mailers, air ads, text messages that, by the way, don't comply with 10 DLC. And if the government takes over with the telecom regulation industry when it comes to polling, texting, marketing, all of this campaigning, if the government takes over, it will single-handedly be Nikki Haley's fault. And what does that mean? You're going to pay more on your phone bill. A lot more. I'm just telling you right now. When you come to me asking me for a poll, don't you dare ask for a discount. I'm telling you right now. When you want to run for office, you're going to pay people like me a lot more to send your text messages. Just a fact. Everyday voter, the biggest way they're going to be impacted is you will pay more on your phone bill. There will be a separate tax altogether that's for 10 DLC. Only it'll be called something else. It'll be called "You're too corrupt to regulate your own industry tax." Something along those lines. And I'm joking, obviously, but not really, because that's what it will be. That's what it will represent. And then the phone companies will take that tax, pass it on to the government, and then slam you again by increasing their rates. I already know. We talk to them all the time. That's what's going to happen because Nikki Haley doesn't respond or respect the 10 DLC regulations. Not just Nikki Haley. It's the groups that support her. I'm talking to you, Mark, and your shitty ass pack. We have a list of names of people who want to report you. And it's ridiculously high. By the way, Mark Caputo knows what I'm talking about. Mark Caputo, the reporter who now runs the Bulwark. He knows exactly what I'm talking about. This is a serious problem. Anyway, so those are the two. We can go back in time. In Iowa, it was the largest margin ever, the most votes received by any candidate for an Iowa caucus, and the fastest call. Those were 3 records in New Hampshire. It was the largest votes received for any candidate ever running in a primary in the state of New Hampshire. Bernie Sanders had that record prior, and Trump smashed it. He also smashed Bernie Sanders' record for the percentage of the overall adult population of a state to vote for you in a primary, exceeding 12%. When Bernie set his vote record, it was only 9.6. Robbie, if you're out there, you probably know better than me, honestly, in your head. But it was 9 something, if I remember correctly. Trump's was over 12% of the entire population of the state. So again, if any other candidate, if this was a Ted Cruz or any other, once upon a time front runner, a Mitt Romney, if this would have happened to them, what is going on with this effort and to interfere with or upset the Republican primary, really what they're trying to do is drain the Republican Party's resources. That's the main thing. And then it's just an added sweet bonus that you're not seeing the weakness of Joe Biden here, because half of these damn people that went out and voted for Nikki Haley should have voted in their own primary. They didn't. What does that mean in the general election? They say they'll vote for Biden, but how many of them really will? Because half of Nikki Haley's voters said they voted for Joe Biden. Almost half. And almost half, 10% less, say they would not vote for Trump. Well, of course. That tells me that 10% of Biden's vote, which was 1/4 of the entire bloc that voted for Nikki Haley, voted for Biden in 2020, but now will either vote for Trump or a third-party candidate in 24. They're masking all of that by doing this. You're not seeing that. And the media, of course, many of them are corrupt, but honestly, a lot of them are just too stupid to understand. And thank you, Robbie. Bernie was 11.32% of the statewide vote. So I was thinking that, Robbie, like it was 11 something, but then I thought it was 9. I think maybe I'm mixing somebody's New Hampshire. Trump got 12.2, 12.16. But who was 9.6? Was that Bernie? Or that was Trump maybe in 2016? Somebody was 9.6, something like that. I'm remembering that number, 9 something in my head. So there we have it. And you're not seeing that, and the media's not reporting it for various reasons, right? Like, look at Nate Silver's tweet. And I said, eventually the stupidity was going to return, folks. He's not that dumb. Maybe he is. I don't know. He can't be doing what he did for many years. He cannot be this stupid. Many of it will just be dishonesty. And if you take the interesting exercise, if you go to X and you look at all the replies to Nikki Haley's speech, about 11 minutes speech after South Carolina, you will see nothing but negative replies. When you look at the quote tweets, you will see nothing but election mafia lying about what it means in South Carolina. That's an interesting tell. Very interesting tell. All right, it's 12:24. Let me just say this before I bring on my guest. When we do, maybe between the 1 and 2 hour, which is what I suspect could happen. It could not happen at all during the show. Winston will arrive. Winston will be the mascot for Inside the Numbers and the new addition to the Barris family. He's our Australian Shepherd toy who's coming, and we're all very excited. So I will take an intermission if Winston comes, because I have to. I got to settle up with them for the delivery. And then hopefully Winston, if he's not too scared, it's going to be a long trip. I don't want to put him under any undue psychological stress. But if he is up and uppity like he is, his personality, then maybe we'll give him a welcome appearance on Inside the Numbers. But for now, I want to welcome somebody else. It's the New York Times best-selling author and my longtime friend, of course, Larry Schweikart, who's got a new book out. All right. And by the way, if you that's my fault. If you haven't seen The Wild World of History and The Wild World of Politics now, the new one, Wild World of Politics, go check it out. But of course, I want to talk about all this craziness in the Republican primary with him. But he has now the Patriots' history of globalism, its rise and decline, which follows, of course, for those of you who know him, and obviously most of you do. Larry Schweikart is the author of The Patriots' History of America, which was a New York Times bestselling author, blew up, went viral, cray viral. Larry, welcome to the show, my friend. How you been?
Oh, Rich, I've been great. I just saw a tweet that on one of Nikki Haley's donors there you were talking about, and it said that her largest donor was Scotchgard.
Yep. Is that right? That's disgusting. But and by the way, thanks again, Robbie. Trump was 9.5% of the statewide vote in 2016. That's got to be what I was thinking about. So for people who were wondering who it was, but Larry, thanks for joining us. Especially, Mondays are always crazy. But look, you got the book behind you, A Patriot's History of the United States, A Patriot's History of America. I say all the time. I don't know why I can't stop it. But that was a great book, a bestseller. It's a direct response to the crazies like Zinn and others. And I pride myself in loving history, Larry, but the Wild World of History is awesome. And now you have The Wild World of Politics and the new book. You have like factoids and tidbits that just people don't know. Like You really very interesting thing you did that blows my mind every time, and I tell people all the time, I refer them to it, about the role that white settlers played in the American buffalo. I know that's crazy. I bring this up all the time to people. I really do, because it's just so much of what we hear is not true. And if you didn't write books like the one you just wrote, the new one you just wrote, and again, let me show people Patriots History of Globalism. I do, like you, believe globalism is on the decline. It's not a sustainable system. If you didn't write books like this, people like Zinn are going to write the history of globalism, Larry. And
Right.
I wanted to get your take on that. Why is that? Why you wrote this?
Well, starting around 2010, perhaps the buzzword was American exceptionalism.
Yeah,
And so we really wanted to address what is American exceptionalism in a patriot's history of the United States. But in the last 10 years, probably the bigger buzzword has been globalism.
yeah,
And I looked at what all the experts said it was, and obviously international control by elites over nations and so on and so forth. But I also did an interesting Twitter poll where I asked people for their definitions of globalism, and it came out pretty close. People really understand that we're in a battle with elites, not just here in America, but worldwide. People like Klaus Schwab and the false prophet there, Harari,
yeah.
all these kinds of people. And it goes back a long way. What I show in the book is it started over 200 years ago with the Congress of Vienna, worked its way through the Treaty of Versailles, up through the United Nations and attempts by scientists to control nuclear weapons internationally. Gee, wouldn't that be fun? Can you imagine what would happen right now if the UN had control of all nukes? Wow.
Oh my Lord.
So then we come up through medical globalism, which we all lived through. And the most recent is celebrity globalism with climate change. And I just, we were hearing about global warming. And just yesterday in my news, I had a note that there is a lake forming in Death Valley. If that's not climate change, I don't know what is. I kind of think that's pretty good.
Larry, I'll tell you, just saw Tom Bevan, I think it was, or somebody just yesterday put out, I think either the New York Times or Time, it was the New York Times, about the East Coast. It's going to be underwater, and it's funny to me, Larry, if they were going to be underwater, then why is Barack Obama living on Martha's Vineyard? Why did he spend millions of dollars for a mansion on Martha's Vineyard? Why do all these people do this? I'm old enough, so are you, to remember when liberals told us in the 80s that New York would be underwater by now. Right? Do you remember that, Larry?
Well, how about
Miami
this one?
would be gone.
How about this one? When I do talks to students and I show them pictures of Plymouth Rock, I say, you know what? It's still there because the oceans are rising, but they know it's a national monument. And so the oceans know to just stay away from Plymouth Rock, right?
Again, for people who don't know Larry's history of basically online history lessons, and Larry's authored books that are used by networks of homeschoolers all over the country. And it's a small world, Larry, and your books are in them, because I went and I've been on this little speaking tour talking to Republican establishment types. They ask. And one of them I went to, I ran into people who homeschooled their children and are part of these networks, and your books were in their criteria. And that was very interesting. And apparently you had spoken with them.
Didn't you just speak down in Vero Beach?
That's what it was. Instead I went close, very, very close to Vero, by Sebastian, very, very close to Vero Beach. Yep. So exactly. I ran into a group that knew you very well. And, you spoke apparently at some point down there, and they just thought the world of it. And always, again, with the factoids, like, did you know this? And I learned this from Larry. So for people who don't know this, they need to go check out Larry's their lessons, really. I mean, that's what they are, but fun, made fun, lots of fun. And I want to ask you this because of globalism and all over I'm going here, Larry, and I'm picking the spots that Laura and I think are textbook traditional republicanism that would be very never Trumpy. I'm going to like the old school Southern Republican donor class that has had land for years. We're going to the George Romney-esque like people in the Rust Belt. This is who we're, and everywhere I go now, Larry, and it's been like this now for, I would say, a month and a half, they hate Nikki Haley. It's like over now for them with Nikki Haley. And you saw what happened with the Koch brothers. Is she not globalism's last stand? I mean, isn't Nikki Haley herself, because they already gave up on Joe Biden.
Right.
So they're just like, we can hurt him with Nikki. It's our last stand. Do you agree with that, first of all? And
Yeah, I mean, she's very much pro uke war. Of course, my nickname for her on Twitter is Knick-Knack Paddywhack, give a uke a bomb. And she is the epitome of the uke war front right now here in America. But I think you see other signs that say that it's not just that they're done with her, that they are coalescing around President Trump. Just today, John Can't Carry a Thune, the senator from South Dakota, endorsed President Trump. He doesn't like Trump at all. But what you're seeing is that they can read the Sanskrit on the wall, and they know what's coming. And if we can just manage the fraud just a little bit, it's going to be a sad day for Democrats in November, because you know this, of course, better than anyone, but it's not just a poll here or there, but I've been following state polls from New York to California, places that wouldn't be Trump territory, but the trend is the same everywhere. And the trend everywhere is a 6 to 10 point shift toward Trump, which is astounding. I mean, at this rate, we still have several months to go. Who knows?
Yeah, let me show people real quick while we're up. There's South Carolina, for instance. And this is how we know, because I don't know why AP Vocast did not put up the margins publicly, but privately, we do know what they are. And about 11%, 9 to 11% of the electorate was non-white. And Nikki Haley beat up the Black Belt counties in South Carolina. But ironically, Larry, that's not who she won. She did not win the black, because Democrats are about 60% black in South Carolina. That's not who voted for her. Trump crushed her among non-whites who actually voted in the Republican primary. Who voted for her was we like to say, the counties that are the ancestors of the slave aristocratic class, like the slave owning aristocratic class. She only got 3 delegates because she won South Carolina 1, which is Nancy Mace's district. And if you can get white, educated, affluent Democrat general election voters, Biden voters, white Biden voters, if you can get them to vote in high numbers in a Republican primary, you can put that together with the 15 to 20% never Trump, part of the Republican Party, and win that district. And we were thinking too, there was an off chance of her winning 3 or 6. She did not. He won 6, even though she won Richland, right? Where you can see right here, for people who don't know where Columbia is. But he almost caught her as the election day vote came in. And by the way, statewide, Trump won the early vote. This is another, people like, how did they call the race so quick? The media's messing up. It's not fair. We heard DeSantis people do this in Iowa too. It is fair. We have obviously exit poll data that's not, exit polls are one thing with CNN. They're done by Edison Research. The AP Votecast is doing very well. We had AP Votecast tell us he not only won election day, he won the early vote, and he won it everywhere except for in 3 counties. That's it. And then the election day vote, he did win, which tells you everything you need to know about who was voting in this primary, Larry. If it was early vote in Charleston, or it was early vote in Columbia, she won that. She lost the election day vote, brother, and he almost caught her in Beaufort and in Richland. In Beaufort, it was very close, and another 5,000 votes, he would have took it. His margin was so big. Richland was a little bit harder, but look at Charleston as well. That's the one where she really won. And he caught her a little bit on election day, but he wasn't winning by the margin he needed to close that gap a lot. Why? Because that's where the white, educated Biden voter is. When you look around in other areas, for instance, Lawrence County is a great example. Look at that, Larry. Nothing. I mean, he crushed her 76.2. Pickens, where he held that rally and 50,000 people showed up. That's where there are less black voters. and yet his margin was smaller. Why? Because some white Democrats in Pickens who are Biden voters voted for, I keep calling her Hillary Clinton, because there's no damn difference anymore, Larry. There's no difference.
It's an understandable error. Yeah.
It's an understandable error. So in Lawrence, he beat her by a bigger margin where there are more black voters than he did in Pickens, So that tells you everything again that you need to know. And then Greenville was one, but we know why. Greenville is a different kind of county, and there are Democrats there. So that was a closer margin. So yeah, I mean, what do you think about? I mean, the Koch brothers now are out. They've run. John Thune has now endorsed Donald Trump. He's, by the way, he really is a picture of Republican cowardice, isn't he? Honestly, isn't he? He is everything that's wrong with the Republican Party. But if I was Trump, I wouldn't refuse his endorsement either. But the Republicans are coming along. Democrats, you think they're going to continue? I mean, what do they have to lose, brother? They have more money than Republicans. You think they're going to continue to fund her at least till Super Tuesday?
Sure.
No.
Yeah, but I know everybody's focusing on the Republican primary because that's kind of where the action is. But I've been focusing on what I call the two civil wars inside the Democrat Party. The first civil war is Hamas Palestinians versus Israel Jews within the Democrat Party, and they can't win this. And we saw a story the other day out of Michigan saying that the pro-Hamas people there are just irate at Rutabaga, or I'm sorry, Biden. That's my nickname for him. That they aren't going to turn out for him. And there's nothing that they can do. They can't further appease the Palestinian Hamas wing because they will further drive the Jewish wing away. Again, none of these people, or not many, are going to vote for Trump, but many, many will stay home. They're looking at massive stay at home on both sides because they can't appease either side. The other civil war is even worse for them, and that is the illegal criminal aliens. And I'd like us to all get our language straight. These aren't migrants, and they aren't aliens or whatever. They're illegal criminals because they knew what they were doing when they crossed the border. Criminally. And so they are now impinging on the resources and the money that otherwise was promised to the inner city, mostly black residents in places like Chicago and New York, and perhaps not so many blacks in Denver. But you see the same thing happening in all these places. And there is an uprising going on within the inner city Democrats. You see it almost every week where some new official is saying, the voters are ready to jump ship because you're giving all our money away. They don't say that, but that's what's happening. They're giving all the money to the illegal criminal aliens. So the Democrats cannot win these two civil wars. All they can do is shut up about both of them and just hope people kind of forget some of them. But they can't do anything at all in terms of proactive action to stop either of these trends, which are both working against them.
That's a really good point. They can address them. They're Karl Marx's internal contradictions. They're eventually going to blow up and come to a head. There's nothing they can do about it. All they can do, like you said, is hope if they lay low that people aren't going to know, which brings us to Michigan. And I was going to preview this in another segment, but I'll just talk about it with you because as you were talking, I pulled this up. I wanted to show people. Here is, and I know it's small and people can't see it, but I'll tell them what they're looking at. This is religion by detail in our last poll, which was a huge poll. It was a religion by detail, and it looks at likelihood. This is what I'm showing is likelihood to vote in the primary participation screen, right? And it's funny because Jewish voters, for instance, Larry, are still voting 62 to 30 in the Democratic primary, but 8% say and these are very high propensity voters. For people who don't know, Jews, 10% of them don't say I'm not voting. That doesn't happen. All right. They are, even if it's not right, in polling, they are always voting. 22% of Muslims say they're not going to participate in the primary. This is what Larry's talking about. And by the way, even though Jews are still 62 to 30 Democrat to Republican primary participation in the head-to-head with Trump, it's much closer. And why is that? Because of some that say the hell with the Democrats. It's like they can't win this, Larry. If they're too pro-Israel, they'll piss off Muslims. If they're too pro-Palestine, they'll piss off Jews. So they can't win this. And Muslims are still, they actually ticked up to 31% participation in the Republican primary. And when you look at Biden versus Trump against religion, you can see Jews are 56 to 36 for Biden. Guys, that's usually 60 something to 20 something, and Muslims, because 27% are saying they're undecided, Trump actually leads with them slightly because he has a little bit higher than the floor of what Republicans get with Muslim votes. So he's done a little bit better with them, and Biden's just doing so bad. That's Muslim Arab voters saying, I'm not voting for this guy, Larry.
Well, and the flip side of this, if you look at Trump, is that he really, I mean, anything's possible, but he really has little room to make any mistake at all. He doesn't need to worry about it because his position has been consistent on both of these. We want to have peace in the Middle East. I tried to have peace in the Middle East with the Abraham Accords. Stop right there. That's all you need to say. And build the wall. We've been against illegal criminal invasion from day one since 2015. That's all he needs to say. He has been consistent on these issues, and obviously Biden is consistent in the opposite direction of chaos. And voters know this. So I'm saying Trump is very strong in terms of what he can do to roll out his arsenal here. He just needs to stay consistent, which he's been consistent now for 8 years. So I'm sure he'll continue to be so.
Yeah, let me ask you too, because this complicates things for both primaries in Michigan, where there are large shares of Muslim voters. For people who think that they're a small sector of the electorate, they accounted for Joe Biden's entire margin in 2020. So, or at least the total number of Muslim voters. So, the fact that they could drop off like this, or some could even go to Trump, I mean, well, obviously some are, is very, very significant. And Larry, looking toward the primaries, there's been this new, and out of what it is born out of what you're talking about. Rashida Tlaib, it's actually was started, I heard, by Bernie Sanders. It was his idea to get Democratic voters to vote uncommitted as a protest against Joe Biden in Michigan. And this is a problem for Nikki Haley, who is trying to get Democratic voters to vote for her. So she could go after and get, in South Carolina, all she got was that white vote. In the Black Belt counties, it suggests this is true, brother. Like you said, it's not just one poll, two polls. This is since going back to 2016, Larry, this is our polling, and Trump's black share vote share of the black vote is the first darker column below. And then above that is his share of the Hispanic vote that we polled, going back again to him versus Hillary, the final poll with him versus Hillary. And this has been steadily ticking up with big spikes here and there, over time. So, taking what you were just saying, how much, because people, every year, what would you tell people? You're a historian. What would you tell people who say, every year we hear about Republicans doing better with Hispanics or black voters, and it doesn't happen? What would you say to them?
I would say that, the black vote was extremely consistent for Republicans for almost 60 years.
Yes.
60 years. And they didn't even vote for Roosevelt in 1932.
Yes.
They only shifted in 36 after he sent a lot of New Deal money to blacks in various parts of the country. So these kinds of things, it's less of a slow trend than it is a kind of build up to a breaking point where people say, I've had it, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore, to quote the movie. But there was another element of Michigan there that we probably ought to address, and that's this shift of the auto workers due to the electric vehicles that are basically putting them out of business. These companies are being forced to put all this money into these famous exploding electric batteries, and they're having to lay auto workers off, and that is not going over well. So while the UAW endorsed Biden, the workers themselves endorsed Trump. And one, Rui Teixeira, I'm sure you know him. He's a Democrat. I call him one of the few sane Democrats out there. And he's been saying for a long time, you're losing these kinds of blue collar workers right and left through all of these progressive programs.
Yeah, he's starting to lose his mind. I read his Substack because, like you, he's him and Matt Iglesias. They're well, for two reasons. One, they're readable. Like you can read them and like say, all right, let me listen to his points. These are valid like arguments, even when you don't agree with them. They may be valid, and it's worth reading. And then two, Democrats, especially with Rig, he Texera, he wrote, well, co-authored, but he's the one that does all the media hits, the emerging Democratic majority. So they listen to him, Larry, and he's basically having angina attacks weekly on his stacks. He's like, wake up, wake up. And he's been talking about Michigan and Georgia a lot because it's not just that working class white vote that's shifting back to what it looked like during Trump versus Hillary, but now it's also the non-white.
Right.
And that is really, that's what, that's his whole thesis was built on, their ability to hold some of the white working class and maintain dominance with other non-white, even working class voters. And if they can't do that, Larry, it's a wrap. And he knows it. So he's trying to like scream at the top of his lungs.
Well,
This is
that's
unions,
why,
by the way.
we see, you and I see the same thing on Twitter. You've always got what about the fraud? Oh, the fraud. Oh, what about the fraud? And the fraud is real. Fraud's been with us since the 1850s. There's fraud in almost every election at some point.
Yep.
But if the election was fixed, and you know this as well as I do, you would not have Teixeira and James Carville and Greenberg and Mark Penn and John Judas and all of these Democrat insiders who read the inside polls. They know what's going on in the party.
Yeah.
They know it's not rigged because they're losing. They know they're about to lose.
Yes.
And they're screaming and nobody's really listening to them. Thank God.
Thank God. Yeah, for now, right? And we're wondering because Biden did he had a nice haul last quarter, and we'll see what that turns into. But they're also like, hey, we're not motivating the way that we were motivating in 2020. Yeah, I'm so glad you said that because there's this like disease on the right. It's rigged. It's rigged. If it was rigged, these guys would not be flipping out and panicking the way that they're panicking. They know that if the election was held today, Donald Trump is going to beat Joe Biden like a drum. And as Larry was talking, I brought up the union vote because Larry, in 2016, the union vote was, Trump lost it by like 4 points. That's it. And private unions, he actually carried a little bit. It depends on which one you're looking at, exits or validated surveys. And then Biden, part of it was the unions did put the screws to their members in 20, and Biden won back like the more respectable share. I think it was Biden plus 16 was the union vote overall. And we reflected that in our polling, Larry. We weren't like all over the place. We could see what was going on. Now, this is our most recent one. Before we lean them, we ask who they would vote for. Biden only leads 46-41. So it's a Biden plus 5. But then when we lean the 13.5% who were undecided, Trump carries the leaners 58-42. So altogether with leaners, Biden is only carrying union households 51-49. That's including public union households, that demographic. So this is a total disaster for them. And this is happening despite unions being more educated now.
Well,
like it's
Richard,
not what it used to be.
It's another area where they, I go back to Ann Richards when George W. Bush ran against her, and she said something at the convention. He can't help it. He was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. Remember that one? Yeah. I always think about that with these guys. They can't help it. That's how they is. They're going to be doing this stuff, and Biden can't back off his green agenda. When we say Biden, look, everybody understands this guy couldn't run a model train railroad, let alone a country. That there are cabals. There are cabals behind him, and I thank God there's not just one. I think there's probably a half dozen. The green cabal, the illegal alien cabal, the youth war cabal, and they're all vying for power and resources within the Biden administration. So we say he's doing it. He's not. He's sitting there going all night long, right? That's it. So, but they can't fix this because their programs, their policies are so focused in this green, let's get electric cars. And I mean, the studies are coming out on how phenomenally expensive this would be. It's not just impossible. It's ridiculously impossible. We could dedicate every cent we have for the next 10 years to greening, and we wouldn't come close to the kind of goals they are setting. And you'd bankrupt the country, of course. So when the auto workers see that the administration is pushing this junk and they're being laid off because of that, they react. And I see that Ford now is just going to shut down or close or slow down its F-150 line even further. Rivian's going out of business. So, you know, how's that, auto workers? How's that working out for you?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I mean, I'm thinking back to when Trump skipped the debate and he went to go talk to the UAW group and not the union itself, because they won't let a Republican candidate near, but the members, you know, their group members. And the one guy had went up to Steve from, I mean, he works for Real America's Voice, but Steve is Gruber. He's Michigan based, and he was walking around talking to these UAW workers. And one of them was kind of like sitting, you know, nonchalantly, like leaning up against the building as he was getting ready to go in. And Steve was like, "Hey, can I talk to you for a minute?" You know, walked over, and the guy was like, "Yeah, all right, whatever." And he's like, "What are you doing here? Like, you know, your leadership doesn't back Donald Trump or any Republicans in general. What are you doing here?" And he was like, "Look, I've been a UAW worker my entire life, 30 something years, 40. I think he said 40. I've been around when Trump was president, when Obama was president, now that Biden's president. He went back all the way to, you know, when George W. Bush was president, when Clinton was president. He had all of these people running down, Larry, that he had been a UAW worker throughout all of these presidencies. And he said, never was his life so good than when Donald Trump was president, period. Sure. End of story." And he's like, "That's what I'm saying. I don't really care, you know, what my leadership says. They know they're full of crap. They know they are." You know, it's just that part is sad. But I think you brought up something before. It's with all of these realignments and demographics, you can see it as a trend steadily chipping here and there. But if you really look at the totality of these realignments, you're right. It's not like a steady trend that eventually ends up 90-10 Democratic voting blocks. This happened a little bit at a time, and then all of a sudden, wham, you know, they would win 35%, and then it was a majority, and then it was a solid measure, and now it's, you know, what it is today. But same thing with Hispanics, Larry. As recently as 2004, you know, Bush was winning 40%, you know, and maybe even a little bit more. And then what happened? The financial crisis hurt them. And, you know, they blame Bush, I believe, rightfully, you know, even though it was not only his fault, he was the president. So it makes sense. And then ever since, it's been Trump trying to claw its way back. I know you got to go. I just want to bring this up when you talk about globalists. A lot of Republicans are. After 2012, when Mitt Romney lost that election, they spent all this money, you know, the globalist wing of the Republican Party, to basically put together this autopsy and say, you know, what it is that we did wrong, what's going on with our party, that we can't win a national presidential election. And Larry, they came up with a plan that looks like MAGA, right? I mean, whether they like the sound of MAGA or not is irrelevant. The coalition that they talked about is MAGA. And these globalists just can't accept it.
Right.
I just want you to speak to that real quick.
Yeah. And, you know, the one part of that coalition that's really left out is the top 1%, the blue-haired coupon clipping ladies, you know, and that's what they're revolting against, is that they still want to be in charge of this movement. I got news for them. The train left that station back in 2016. They're never getting a hold of this majority again. And so, you know, you see people like Megan McCain out there. I'm going to vote for Biden. These people are dinosaurs. And, you know, the Charles Sykeses, and they're still trying to define conservatism as it was under Reagan. And I love Reagan. I wrote his biography. I think he was the man for the time. I think he saved the world from nuclear disaster. But the conservatism of Reagan is different than the conservatism of today, because our issues are different, and we must confront what's in front of us today. So what we are facing is an assault by globalists, whether it's through medicine and mandates of vaccines, which, again, you're the pollster, but you know that something like 80% of Americans took the first vax,
Yep.
50% took the second, only 1% said they'd take another one. I can't tell you how many people I know who took one and have side effects and said, I wish I'd never taken it. So, and going back to 20, yes, there was fraud. Yes, there was cheating. But I think overall, there was a sense in the country. They think that Trump screwed up somehow with the vax, and they blame him. They didn't know how, whether it's the vax or the China virus itself. And they, well, we'll put this other guy in. And now they're starting to realize, no, this was kind of a fraud perpetrated on us by people way outside the United States.
Yeah, and I think you said something there too that is really important with the Meghan McCains and stuff. And it's ironic because, and you wrote his biography, a lot of these people who are never Trump now are only Reagan pretenders, Larry. I mean, her daddy stabbed Reagan in the back just like he stabbed Donald Trump in the back. I mean, the Department of Education, the Reagan tax cuts. I mean, there was I had the story recounted to me. I mean, Reagan had McCain at the White House and was like, "Can I count on you?" And he told the president, "Yeah, you got my vote." And he went across the Capitol Hill and voted no. And Reagan was like, "Who is this guy? Doesn't he have any, like, I know he's got injuries, but does he have a spine? Does he have a word? Like, is he a man of it, with integrity and have his word? He just told me to my face that he was with me on this, and then he lied." Right. So this has been like going on for a long time. George Will hated Ronald Reagan. He pretends like Ronald Reagan's the golden goose now. I mean, it's such a load. It's such a
everything
load,
Reagan did in terms of Reykjavik or Geneva. Will would write a column saying, "Oh, Reagan gave away the store. Reagan, Gorbachev beat Reagan." Every single time Reagan kicked Gorbachev's butt. Yeah. And it was so bad that the last time they met, Reagan stood firm on SDI, and Gorbachev said, "No, we can't do that." And Reagan looked up at George Shultz and he said, "George, am I wrong on this?" He goes, "No, Mr. President, you're right." He closed his binder, got up and walked out. And the scene was of Mikhail Gorbachev toddling along after him going, wait. He says, "Wait, I want, what could I have done?" And Reagan snapped at him and said, "You could have said yes." And he got in the car and drove off.
See, folks, that's the kind of stuff you're going to get from Larry Schweikart in his books right there. You're not going to get that anywhere else. I mean, that's Larry. And this is his website, Wild World of History. There's also Wild World of Politics. They're both just fantastic. Larry, tell people where they can go, support you, get the book, everything.
Well, we've got offers right now up on Wild World of History, Patriots History of Globalism and Patriots History of the United States, or Patriots History of Globalism in my previous book, Dragon Slayers. There's some great offers up there. Also, I have a subscription service on each side, a VIP on history and insider on politics, where I have tons of videos. I've got probably 55 or 60 hours of history videos on Wild World of History, and a bunch of probably 30 or 40 hours of political videos on Wild World of Politics. So check them out, either side. I'm doing a homeschool convention tour this year. I'll be in somewhat close to you. I'll be in Greenville, South Carolina in the second week of March. So
that's not far. That's not far.
People can come out and see me live and in person.
I think I'm going to try to do that. In fact, that's not far at all.
I'll get you into the convention free. How's that?
Nice. I'm telling you guys, go check it out. The videos are awesome. For anyone who's never seen Larry's videos, you may have, and you don't even know it, on PragerU. He's got great videos about the Pilgrims. It was awesome. But that's the kind of stuff you're going to get from Wild World of History and Wild World of Politics, and his books are fantastic. Thanks, Larry. Thanks for coming out, brother. As always, I really appreciate it.
Thanks.
All the best. That's Larry Schweikart, ladies and gentlemen. Go check it out. Go check out his stuff. It really is something else. Personally, I am a big fan too of how Trump won. He did with if you guys haven't seen that, I think him and what's his name from Breitbart, Joel Pollack from Breitbart. Joel did the kind of like reporter side of it. This is what I saw on the ground when I covered the events. This is what was going on. And then Larry gave the history part of it. This is what historically was behind the movement. This is why the movement stuck. This is what who he was appealing to. So it's like we should expect these red wall states, these blue wall states, some of them to fall, and they did fall. I'll tell you what, an interesting tidbit: Larry believed 100%, and I was new, especially publicly when it came to presidential polling. I was new. We threw all of it out there. Believe me, it was not easy. And we had Battleground States, the national tracker. We took a lot of crap. And Larry was, first of all, he was a huge voice of support. Like, look, the hell with them. You do what you think is right, and you do what you think is your best work, and it'll iron out in the end, whether you're right or you're not. But Larry 100%, believed that I was going to be right and everybody else was going to be wrong. I'll never forget when I handed him Wisconsin, last poll in Wisconsin. I was like, because Clinton had been leading between like 1 and 3 points. It was very close. But there were this chunk of undecideds. He took undecideds by a huge margin, and it put him over just about a point, just under a point. And I was like, this is it, Larry. This is like it. This is the worst, because I actually thought Michigan wasn't a stretch. People should expect that. Pennsylvania wasn't a stretch. We had them up by almost 4 points in North Carolina. That state was kind of out of the box. Florida, 1.6. We had them. We won by 1.4. But Wisconsin, for some reason, because it's a weird state to poll, Wisconsin bothered me. And I remember giving it to Larry, and he was just like, yeah, that's about right. That looks right to me. And I'm like, I hope it looks right to you, because I'm feeling iffy about this one. And sure as hell enough, Wisconsin was the first one to go. You have to understand, guys, that Republicans didn't win states like this. This was like walking out on the plank on the pirate ship, and it was an emotional roller coaster. Let me put it that way. All right, let's take a real quick break. When we come back, we're going to go over a little bit with Michigan before I run out of time. All right, so hopefully I just get to take a break. It may, this way I take a break, step away, and come back, but we'll see how it goes. But let's see. Yeah, let's just take a break. We'll come back and talk about Michigan after this. All right, and we'll take a break with our friends from Jam and Bean, JAMBean.com. Listen, love Jam and Bean when I'm not using Brick House to stay awake and stay healthy. Now, I love myself a little bold flavored medium roast, because I'm a dark roast guy. But a bold flavored medium roast, there's no one else I go to other than my friends at Jam and Bean. Patriots through and through. Like I always say, Michigan based, speaking of Michigan. And they have got me falling in love with tea 100%. If you start a new subscription at Jam and Bean, use the promo code TPP40. That will get you 40% off right off the rip, right from the start. And every month when the subscription renews, you're still going to get 10% off. Look at those gift boxes you can get for somebody you love, somebody you want to show your appreciation. They're fantastic. I love my gift boxes. The popcorn, the gourmet popcorn, is the best. And full stop. Full stop. We're big popcorn lovers, but I'm not huge on like caramel popcorn, right? You get it during Christmas because it's tradition. Their caramel popcorn's over the moon good. Everything is natural, and nothing leaves you feeling sticky and nasty and yucky like crappy grocery store popcorn. And it absolutely is very, very reasonably priced. All right. So, some of the gourmet popcorn out there is just ridiculous. All right. But there it is. JamandBean.com. Use the promo code TPP40. And by the way, if you didn't know how damn good Michigan syrup is, you better get to know. Right, Laura? Better get to know. I know Vermont's got it down with the maple syrup. I get you, Vermont. I hear you. And I love your maple syrup. I do. But I can't believe how good Michigan Gold is. My kids love it. And you can get some with like cinnamon sticks in it. I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm gonna. I'm not a big, drinker anymore. All right. We all know how I am when it comes to stuff like that. And last November was 15 years, right? I don't care if I'm a 90% burn victim. I'll never take another painkiller again. And it's 15 years last November, I think, if I remember correctly. But we like to do things natural and on our own here. Everything from growing fruit, vegetables. We like to experiment with stuff. And we love history. So we're going to try to make mead the way the Vikings did. All right. And there's different stuff that you could use in all these different things. We're actually going to do a little experiment with different kinds of honeys and stuff like that. Very, very cool. Very cool stuff. But anyway, yeah. We're also big fans of like medieval fairs. And what do you even call them, Laura? They're not carnivals, but it's like a medieval fair. Yeah, medieval fair. That's what it is. All right. So again, that's it. Promo code, use it, TPP40 at checkout. By the way, we are sampling some new products now from Brick House. We'll be seeing whether or not we can bring them to you. Just as a hat tip, because this isn't an advertiser, just as a hat tip, I got to tell you, some of you may know who he is. Maybe some of you do not. But I had been looking because I'm getting back into working out. I've already lost 1, 2, 3, 4 pounds, which is I'm stoked about. But I want to put on muscle weight, but I got to slim down first. I mean, between being so busy during prepping for elections and everything like that, and all of the changes that have been going on here, it's been a lot. And I fell out of my workout routine toward the end of the summer last year. Any event, so now I'm back into it, and I'm going through all my products, and I'm just like, I don't know. I'm unhappy with the performance of this one. I'm unhappy with some of the ingredients, and I'm out there looking around, and I may be butchering his name, but Mark Lobliner, he's he used to be a boxer, but he's certainly like a workout guy, and I believe he's the he's one. If he's not a co-founder, he's one of the higher ups at Tiger Fitness. And he created this thing called the outright bar. I just got to give him a heads up because he was right. And I told him if they were that good, I would tell everybody. I already got more coming. These are the best protein bars I have ever had. I'm not lying. Birthday cake. I got peanut butter and jelly. I took one bite of each and got different flavors, and they're on their way. The protein that I'm using is their lean one, which was Snickerdoodle. Just totally delicious. So I just wanted to give him that little hat tip because he was a huge help, and he's not joking. It's the real deal. So for those of you, I always talk about health stuff. You guys know that. For those of you who are out there looking for something new, GNC stuff is super, super convenient, but it's also very expensive. And I'm not sure it's worth it. I got a whole bunch of stuff I want to just junk in the garbage. And by the way, the protein that I have used, this is basically the same company I've been using since I was in my 20s. And at one point when I was like 28, I was a freaking monster. But I'm not 28 anymore. I'm 42. And I need things to be worth me busting my butt with, So, yeah, and the stuff they put in the products in GNCJ, that's what I'm talking about. J32356, the stuff in there. And they always say, oh, there's only so many carbs in this bar. That's a load of crap because the fiber binder and the other binder crap goes towards your carbs. So let's go before we hit Michigan. I don't want to miss some of your comments. A question to the it's rigged and there's no stopping the cheat crowd. If we can't beat the cheat, why did Dems come up with 1 point short in North Carolina in 2020? That's a really good point, Drearier. Why aren't they stealing Wyoming and Oklahoma too? If there's an infinite amount of fraudulent ballots they could add. Amen and praise Jesus. Thank you, Drearier. Amen and praise Jesus. He's slamming stuff in there. I don't know what he's doing, but it's loud. Exactly. And by the way, if that's the case, then you're just going to roll over and what? Play dead? Because eventually you won't be playing. How you like that? They're going to make sure you ain't playing. All right. So second one, and just real quick before I move on to the second one, Jerry is right. Guys, on locals, you're going to get a post real soon now that I got the thumbs up to do it. Wait till you see some of the numbers in a state like Michigan, where Biden won, ballpark, 150,000 votes. It's ballpark. You're going to crap when I show you how many low propensity Republican voters there are, how many non-registered targets there are. I'm so sick of hearing about people whining. I'm so sick of the people whining like this about the fraud, and that goes for everybody. That goes for everybody. And I'm lately, again, I did see the Michigan College poll, Trump up. I mean, Emerson College, Trump up Michigan. I did see that. Um, I am, and by the way, Michigan should be, you should expect Michigan polls to tighten it. It will be close. Even if these targets are hit that I'm going to show you on locals, we're still talking about like a 2-point win. Right? It could be a blowout. It could be, because there are a lot of people who are changing their mind. There are enough people who say in not just our polling, but in Spencer's. And by the way, Spencer waited for party. He waits for party at Emerson, and I don't like that. There is no party registration in Michigan. It's all self-identification. There isn't a single election in Michigan where you can look back and say, all right, Michigan was R+1 in 2020, so it's going to be R+2 again, R+1 again in 2024. It wasn't R+1 in 2016. So if you would have waited to the D plus whatever, you would have gotten a bad poll. You would have gotten like a Biden +8. You can't do that. This is why I am against waiting for party. And I have a great deal of respect for other pollsters, that including those who do. And I like them and I think they do a good job. It is something very, very wrong when you're telling the electorate what you think it's going to be. And you cannot do that. But in any event, when you're looking back at the 2020 voter, there are twice as many Biden voters who say they will vote for Trump than there are Trump voters who say they will vote for Biden. That alone is enough to flip the state of Michigan. Forget about all of the new people, all of the other ones that may be entering the electorate. Just, Harvard Harris is Trump +6. That's our poll, Trump +6. Harris X, which is different, by the way. They didn't get put on Real Clear Politics. They were put up really quick. I don't know why. I know who the guy is who does it. It's not Tom. Everyone attacks poor Tom, but it's not Tom or his partner who immediately put those polls up. There's someone else who's in charge of it. And yes, I'm sure Tom could call up and say, hey, put the damn poll up. But I don't know what the hell they were doing. I can't answer that question. I don't know. Harris is +6 or +8, Trump, whatever it was. It was up there, Harris X, and then they pulled it. And then nobody would put it back up. And then later, 24 hours later, Harris X puts out a Trump +2. They buckled under pressure because nobody would put them up. I asked, and I'm going to tell you the response I got. I know one of the up top guys there. I'm not going to get into it. I didn't ask him specifically, and I could. I just don't want to bust his balls over it. But somebody told me that the Messenger didn't sponsor the poll, so that's why they didn't put it up. At first, they put it up thinking that's the Messenger poll. Well, in case they didn't know this, the Messenger went bankrupt. The Messenger's out of business. Which, by the way, I think it was Seth Levy who told me that. Hat tip to Seth. So if they were good enough to put up an aggregate when they were sponsored by the Messenger, why aren't they good enough now? Anyway, they did something that really bothers me, and that's cave. I made a phone call to one of them the day we released, or the night before we released the Trump +6 that we just released. And I was like, look, I know I'm going to take a lot of shit, but I've been over these numbers a million times. They're right. Maybe we caught movement because Biden had a really bad day and he had a really bad week, and it's possible that I will accept that is possible. But it is what it is. Trump has opened up a significant lead now for our polling. We get most candidate A +4. Like, we don't get candidate A +6s and 8s and 10s and 12. That doesn't happen to us. Our methodology really probably just doesn't allow it unless it is real and it blows open like that. Presidential elections are decided by close margins, even if the Electoral College makes it look a little bigger. They're still decided going to be close races. There are no Reagan landslides anymore. There are no Nixon landslides or Lyndon Johnson landslides. Just even when Barack Obama won in 2008, it's a big Electoral College landslide, but it's not Reagan-esque landslide. Demographics are just too different from state to state to state anymore. And we're too divided. But I called him and told him it is what it is. I went over it with him in great detail. And I said, I know I'm going to catch shit, but it's going out. I would never feel pressure from whoever responds in the tweet. You're a fake pollster. Oh, Nate Silver banned you. That would never, ever cause me to release another poll 48 hours later, if that, changing my answer because the aggregator didn't like it and didn't put it up. I don't give two shits if they want to put them up or not. Hat tip to the decision desk. I love you guys. Nothing but love for you. I love those guys. I do. They're honest, decent, and they got balls. Right, Laura? They got balls. And loyalty matters. By the way, loyalty matters. When you give somebody your word, they should expect that you're good for it. That your word is your bond. When someone gives me their word, I'm going to expect the same in return. Decision desk keeps their word. So they have earned my loyalty. The rest of them, so far, the jury is out. It's ridiculous at this point. Ridiculous. All right. I mean, imagine thinking that Nikki Haley is going to be the front runner in 28. Nate Silver. You cannot be this dumb. You cannot be this dumb. Hold on, I got to text it. Maybe them. Oh, no. That's somebody else being considerate, courteous, and thanking me. Trump's favorability has officially gone positive, Laura, in the Harvard-Harris poll. Let's take a look at this poll. First, wait, let's go to Michigan first, because I want to see how close it is with our polling. Did Interactive Polls put it up? I think he's mad at me, by the way. He stopped tweeting my polls. I think he's mad at me, and I think it's because I said his real name. Oh, well. Oh, well. If that's it, I'm sorry. I don't know. Or if you believe Nate Silver crap, then up your ass, and I could care even less. All right. If Trump is convicted for inciting the Capitol riots on January 6th, who would you vote for? Trump +8. His lead is increasing. Oh, my God. His lead is increasing if he's convicted. You have got to be kidding. Now, if he's convicted of a RICO, it's Trump +4. If he's convicted of the documents Mar-a-Lago case, which could be thrown out, then it goes to 50-50. Wow. Wow. But his lead actually increases, folks. Holy moly. They think that the Fani Willis shit is just a joke now because Fani has been hurt with her Fanny. Yeah, you see, by the way, it's the Center for American Political Studies, the Harris Poll, and HarrisX, which, by the way, is a Stagwell company. It's not just HarrisX. And it's not right, by the way. If you take the Harvard-Harris poll, it's not right not to take the HarrisX. So I'm just saying that I'm getting, for a bunch of people who don't aggregate me anyway, it's getting a little bit hard for me to defend them. I don't know, because people hit me constantly. What's up with this? What's going on? Can you ask what's going on? I mean, I can, but it's like I'm getting to a point where, do I care if people think it's wrong? It is wrong. Yeah. Nikki Haley will be on the boards of companies in 2028, Nate. She will not be the Republican president for nominee for president. You cannot piss off 80% of the Republican Party and think that you're going to be the nominee. But she got 40%. She didn't get 40%. $38.5 million in her own home state. Got her about 25%. I'll be generous. And the rest are Democrats. All right, let's talk Michigan quick before we get the Harvard-Harris poll up. Because Michigan's different. There's some interesting stuff talked about with Nikki Haley. 55 delegates at stake at Michigan. 5 more than South Carolina. This is GOP, by the way, side of it. 39 are congressional CD level delegates, and they are awarded on the results of caucuses that are held at the congressional district level over the next several weeks. However, 16 delegates are awarded to the results of a non-binding primary that is held tomorrow. Okay? Yeah, non-binding. I've already been told to tell you there is expected to be a call at 9 p.m. We have some. That's why I was like, I'm going to poll Michigan. And I thought, no, don't, because other people are doing modern. Let's just call them modern exit polling, because it's not quite exit polls, but they're being done. This is not competitive. Now, I should probably just not say that, and then Trump voters don't come out and people yell at me for depressing Trump turnout. The state is, let me put it in this quote. This is the quote. Since the state primary is unlikely to be competitive, expect to be able to call the race at 9 p.m. at the closing time of polls, using information from the survey research and also from the votes that were released in the first hour. Why? We have up. There will not be a call before voters are done voting. There are 2 time zones in Michigan. One, and then the Upper Peninsula. So you don't think in the Eastern time at or a local time at 8 p.m. the state is done. They are not. Upper Peninsula has an added hour. All right. Okay, so the Michigan GOP is expected to announce the results of both delegate allocation process at the state party convention. However, there's a great deal of uncertainty and I'm talking about the caucus, the district level caucuses. There's a great deal of uncertainty around these because we have some infighting in the Republican Party. What a surprise. Delegate allocation rules are contradictory. Why? You have Christina Karamo, who KK, they call her, who thinks that she was removed by an illegal rule, and that Pete Hoekstra, who was the other one, is not legitimate. And a court's going to have to decide this or something. I don't know, because I have offered, Laura has offered, we know the parties, this is pathetic and ridiculous. Let's get both of your asses to sit down in a room away from the cameras and let's talk about this. I, for one, think it is a good idea to unite the party. I mean, you're dumb if you think, believe me, it's a good idea for Democrats to unite their party. They will, even with their internal contradictions, give the impression that they are united, whether they are or they're not. They will give the impression that they are. This kind of crap with Republicans is just dumb. Come together, co-chair the party, and move forward. This is pathetic. President Trump is polling the strongest any candidate has polled in Michigan since 1988 for a Republican. So get over your damn God complex and get it together. You owe him that. He ruined his life for you. He ruined his family's life. He's put his entire business in jeopardy for you. Shame on you. Shame on you all. It's disgraceful. You know what there's a real lack of in this country, Laura? Honor. Do you have any honor? Well, they'll keep the process monitored and let you know. It is even without the contradictory rules, it's already this hybrid-like system that's already very convoluted and complex. Anyway, expect Trump to run the weakest in the following districts, although he may not lose any of them. Michigan 3, 6, and 11. None of the other districts are even remotely close to being competitive. There are few in Michigan 12 and Michigan 13. There are barely Republican voters. So there is an off chance something like that could happen. However, Democrats have their own primary going on. Biden is not going to want to be humiliated in Michigan, and there is this. But it's funny. It's like they are deciding whether or not it's worth humiliating Biden more than, worth humiliating Trump or trying to, than it is to humiliate Biden. So will he? Like in New Hampshire, they didn't really fight. But Dean Phillips posed a problem. Why didn't they fight? There weren't delegates. There are delegates in Michigan for Democrats. So it does pose a different situation than either of the primaries we've been in so far. And we've seen Haley get these Democrats to vote in so far. I would say in counties like Oakland, expect white Democrat Biden voters in Oakland that are educated, rich. That would be Haley's crossover. But when you're talking about Wayne, Trump is winning urban areas. This is something you need to understand. You're looking at like Richmond, for instance. But she won Charleston and Richland. She won Columbia. No, she didn't really. She won the county because of those white Democrats in the exurbs. Trump is winning the urban vote, and he won it pretty easy. Even in South Carolina, Iowa, New Hampshire, he won the urban vote easy. He's crushing her with rural and urban. She's only winning the burbs because of Democrats. Otherwise, she'd lose them too. They tied in the burbs in South Carolina. Without those Democrats, Nikki Haley loses the burbs 65-35. Easy. Anyway, so that's what we expect. Let me give you some, here we go. Oakland, what I just brought up, they actually think it'll be a bit less pro-Trump, but they're highly educated Detroit suburbs. 14% of the vote approximately will come from Oakland. Washtenaw, that's where Ann Arbor is. This may be Trump's weakest county, but it's about 3% of the statewide vote. Kent County is another one. Trump carried it in 16, lost it in 20 by a few votes, and the so-called Republican county clerk allowed a lot of fraudulent votes to be counted in some very weird way. Which, I could show you them. That's where Grand Rapids is, but what it is a large center of Dutch heritage voters. I wish locals, I've got to provide you more context now, because, or like today or soon, because you'll know what I'm talking about more so. We're cutting these, we're doing these targets, and you would be stunned how many votes are left on the table in Kent County. You'd be stunned. Now, here's Nikki Haley's problem. You have a county like Macomb, which is a Democrat county. Trump kicks ass in it. He's the only Republican who wins it. If we ran an inference model right now, because there's no party registration, there's no voter registration by party, it would tell you Macomb County is still around 54-55% Democrat. When you look at governor's races, stuff like that, that's what it looks like. Yet they vote for Trump not once, but twice. And this is the problem Nikki Haley has. She can't get those Democratic Macomb County votes to vote for her because those are Trump voters. This will be a good example of a county where we will see how strong Trump is. Macomb and Monroe, they will be good examples. Macomb, though, is unique because that's the home of the Reagan Democrat. And that's what Trump, we've gone over these, overimposed these maps before with Trump. Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, his victories look like Reagan victories. Even his narrow losses look like Reagan victories. All right, so that's about, Macomb County will be about a little less than a tenth of the vote statewide. So about overall 9-10% of the vote, maybe eight, but we'll see. This will be the first contest where Trump, it's likely to be the first contest where Trump really just totally dominates the field. All right. He's leading by about 75-25 right now. It is an open primary. It is. So this will benefit Haley. However, there will be an interest in the state's Democratic Party primary because Rashida Tlaib and Bernie Sanders, particularly Rashida Tlaib, Bernie Sanders is a little bit on the back end, but it's his thing. They are urging Democrats to vote uncommitted. They're trying to embarrass Biden, and that should decrease crossover voting and take from Haley's share of the vote. All right. What else? It's 1:30. Trump is likely to win every county in every district. There is off chances she can win a county here and there, a district here and there, but this is very different. Trump will run the best in obviously less educated and lower income areas, but those are ancestry Republican areas that have, Dutch areas in the state. And I think I might have heard them, Laura. But they're concentrated in and around Detroit's burbs and the western portion of the state near Grand Rapids. Everything else is Trump country. If he does lose a district, it'll be either Michigan 3, 6, or 10. But we're not expecting he will yet. Remember Gibbs's district? He will run strong in the rest of the state. Very strong, especially rural areas that have ancestral Democratic voters that are working class whites. Macomb, Genesee, Muskegon, Saginaw. He's going to crush it. Crush. And there are a lot of in the general election, some of these areas where Trump's going to do really well. It doesn't seem like a lot of votes, but in a primary, it's going to be votes. He's going to rack it up. All right. So while we wait for my dog, which I'm going to go peek at right now, I'm going to put this up on the screen for you guys. Take myself off and just go take a look. We'll go over the Harvard-Harris poll by popular demand. All right. Plus, I'm interested. No, I'm not, man. Let me say something. Dead named Dan said, I think Rich is mad at MAGA voters because they will not give in to RNC and accept their choice in leadership. No, I don't want you tearing the party apart. I'm not mad at anybody, but I think it's dumb to tear the party apart. I like KK a lot. I like her a lot. I think Republicans should have people like KK running the party more than Pete Hoekstra. That's not saying I have anything against Pete Hoekstra, too. I heard he's a very nice guy. I just don't think he's the future of the Republican Party. It's just fighting. It's just dumb. It's dumb. In case you haven't noticed, they're tearing the country apart. Our institutions are failing before our eyes. They're going to throw us all in gulags. Don't you guys know that yet? My audience should know that. We are going to be put in gulags. All of us. They'll start with people like me once they get Trump. They'll go after like people like me, Poso, Gorka, Tim Pool, Cernovich, Scott Adams. We're all getting rounded up. And if you don't obey, you're going to get rounded up next. I'm sorry. I'm talking about it nonchalant, but it's true. All right, let's take a quick break. Be back in a few minutes. Actually, I guess you'd rather me leave that up, right? Let's see if I can find you something fun here. This is the methodology. All right. Let me read it real quick before I get kicking here. This survey was conducted online within the United States from February 21st to the 22nd among 2,022 registered voters by the Harris poll and Harris X. Results were weighted for age within gender, region, race, ethnicity, marital status, household size, income, employment, education, political party, I don't like that, and political ideology where necessary to align them with their actual proportions in the population. That is sometimes necessary. But again, ideology is fluid, so I frown on having to do it. I don't like to do it. Propensity score weighting was also used to adjust for the respondent's propensity to be online. That we do. It's baked into the cake, so we don't explicitly state it, but that's baked into our paneling sample, which is a subsample of a greater mixed mode survey. But that is definitely the case. And we talked about this a little bit last time, but not as much as we should. The poll was supervised by pollsters Mark Penn, chairman of the Harris poll, Dritten Esho, who is the CEO of Harris X, Stephen Ansel-Lebeher, I think it is, professor and CAPS director of emeritus at Harvard University. All right. And here I will leave you with some data, and we will be back in a hot second while I go check on things. Aw, he's not here yet. That makes me sad. And I wanted you guys to see him. And by the time the show ends, or if he gets here, I mean, he's not going to be able to just throw him in front of the camera. So it looks like Wednesday it is. But I'll put up pictures on Locals. I already put up one. You guys want to see him real quick? Who wants to see him? Who wants to see my Winston? You guys want to see my Winston real quick before we do this? Oh my God, Media Matters cuts a part of the People's Pundit was asking his viewers if he wanted to see his Winston. Disgusting. The People's Pundit's a disgusting misogynist. You can hear it now. That's not what I meant. It's not what I meant. Anyway, guys ready over at Media Matters? Here's my Winston. Here he is. I won't pull a Dana Perino with you guys, but I do have to tell you, there's my little Winston boy. Isn't he adorable? His one blue eye, one dark eye. It's absolutely adorable. It happens with this breed actually quite a bit. He's an Australian Shepherd. It happens. It's not like a freak thing or like he's gonna have a health problem. So don't worry about that. That's just it. It happens. And he's such a rascally little character, which is what really made us fall in love with him. I wanted a brown or blue Merle, which is more expensive, but this guy just stole the show. He just stole the show. And I was like, he's a Barris. We all did. And Laura saw him first. Laura spotted him first, which isn't surprising because everyone's like, Dad, you know, he kind of looks like you. Very funny, kids. But he also has like a similar personality, which they say like you have to really pick the dog that fits your personality. That I can believe. And also that's probably why Laura was able to find him before anybody else, because she found she was drawn to the dog that has a similar personality. That's my Winston. And I can't wait for my little itty bitty friend to get here. We haven't had a dog in years since our Louie passed away. And we're not like one of those families that absolutely needs to have an animal, but I do believe that every home is better off if you can do it. You can swing it and be a good owner. Every home is better off, especially one with kids. All right. But anyway, you got to be responsible enough. And I was waiting for my kids to be more responsible and balance life better. And then I was feeling more comfortable doing that. I still am on the hunt for the coolest husky ever. By the way, Laura said that there is someone on our Locals page who produces very, very healthy dog food. This particular breeder is no joke. So I would absolutely be open if you have like high nutrition value, no crap binder stuff. I would be absolutely interested. If you want to post it on Locals, I would be delighted to try it. So we should post it on Locals, and I would love to see it. All right. So here we go. Let's take a look at the new Harvard Caps Harris poll. This is direction of country. They have it. Let's compare it to ours and see what they have versus what we have. Our direction of country is, I'm just going to use the crosstab. Very close to theirs, not quite. Theirs is 62% wrong track, 32% right track. We're at 65% wrong track, 24% right track, 11% undecided. They have 7% undecided. Interestingly, just looking back at their trend, which you can see here, yeah, it's Dems keeping it up. You know, it is what it is. Ever since Barack Obama, Democrats began being living in their own world. I'm sorry, it's just true. Even Rich Curtin over at the University of Michigan Survey of Consumers, he has seen it and commented on it. The Consumer Confidence Index, which is done by Nielsen Analytics, they have commented on it. In the Obama era, Democrats just began saying things are like better than everyone else knows they are. It's really weird. And then in the reverse of that, which is when those two really brought. Oh, Gallup also commented on it as well, that this is not normal. If you've been tracking this for a long time, you know, like Republicans said things are bad during Bush and during the recession and the economic crisis. I'm telling you that if there was bank meltdowns right now, and there were bank meltdowns under Biden, Democrats would still, majority or close, tell you things are going fine. Economic confidence would be higher. They're saying it because they're political, not because they are isolated too, because Democrats are more sheltered voters. They're not living with the problems that other people, the rest of America's living with. That's just true. But it's weird. And then when things were booming under Trump, everybody, independents, Republicans, were at record high levels of confidence and optimism. And Democrats were like, no, it's bad. It was pathetic. They're like children or something. I'm sorry. I'm serious. Meanwhile, under Obama, everyone's like, things are shit, okay? No, they're not. Things are just fantastic now, better than they've ever been. Yeah, okay. It's crazy. Despite a slight uptick, though, 1 in 3 voters say the U.S. economy is headed on the right track. It's up from 31% now to 34%. Negativity is down from 63 to 60. It's still on the wrong track, but it's a slight increase. Look, you can see Dems right here. Independents and Republicans are very close. Even when they're wide, you know, you have 14 to compared to 30. I mean, they're 15% off of Republicans. Independents, Democrats are 30 points off. Twice as much. Twice as out of touch as with the independent. All right. The perceived strength of the U.S. economy remains underwater, with 3 and 5 saying it's weak. Moving on. While the numbers of voters saying the finances are getting worse has improved, over 4 in 10 still report a worsening financial situation. By the way, look at it under Trump when he lost. When he lost, right here. Nowhere near this. Most voters say their current personal economic situation is underwater. And again, you can see independents there much closer aligned with with Republicans. 7 in 10 voters say the U.S. will be in a recession now, or will be in a recession the next year. They mean not will be in a recession, is in a recession, or will be in a recession a year from now. So is in a recession now. A third of voters probably rightfully. Oh, are you? You got my hopes up. A third of voters probably rightfully say we're in a recession now. I think we probably are, even though, like, I think we were too, and they just artificially bounce out of it. And then another 38%, damn, that's 4 in 10, say that it will be within a year. Only 29% think we will not be in a recession. While a plurality say that remain optimistic about life next year, that is a minority opinion. All right. So you see about a quarter says about the same, and about a third says pessimistic. Biden's approval has seen a small uptick, but is still underwater. What's their small uptick? About 4 in 10 strongly disapprove. Wow, that's 45%. That's a 3-point uptick. It is small and marginal, just over marginal. I don't know how the hell you'd get 45% approval rating. I just don't. I'm sorry. You can see white approval is 18 points underwater. That's bad for Biden. And Hispanic approval is 11 points underwater. That's good for Trump and Republicans. Handling of key issues underwater, especially on immigration. Where's immigration? Hamas, 38%. Handling inflation, 39%. We had them at like 33%. Immigration, 35%. We had him, I think, immigration was his lowest, I think, for us. Let's see. Approval of Biden on inflation and cost of living, that's how we say it, was 32.3%. Immigration and border security was 29.6%. Woof. All right, moving on. 7 and 10 say prices increase and inflation have proven to be sticky and are here to stay. Yeah. I mean, and inflation was red hot last month. And it was never true. Inflation was declining, that talking point. In the rate of inflation, the increase had declined for a little while. But now, again, it's red hot, and it's just being caused by different things. It was food and energy. And now it's shelter and food. Energy is still much higher than it was under Donald Trump. It's just that it is leveled off on how the rate it was rising by. Not a single area say they've made progress. Not one demographic says we've made progress. Look at that. Proven sticky. Hispanic 68%, white 72%. Asians 80%. Suburbia 73%. Not good for Biden. A majority of voters say they approve of the job Trump did as president, driven by a diverse segment of voters. 57% now, Laura, retroactively approve of the job Trump did as president. He's getting reelected. I don't know how you kill this in such a short time. It's starting to get baked into the election year cake. He's going to win. He's going to win. At this point, he is the favorite. There's just no doubt. And I know Harvard Harris is a little bit out there compared to some others, but everyone sees it. Even Gary Langer, Biden plus 17, remember that? Even Gary Langer at Langer Research had Trump positive in retroactive approval and above 50. It was like 54-41 or something. Very close to this. This is very, very bad news for Joe Biden. Very bad news. 40% of black voters approved of the job Donald Trump did. His retroactive approval rating now with Hispanics almost mirrors nationwide, 57-42. Whites are 62-37. Unbelievable. My kids are like, is he here yet? Yeah, poor Bree. I'm starting to get nervous a little bit. She did say between 1 and 2. It's 10-2. I guess, but there's no time, Laura, that he'd be able to get situated and I'd be able to show him to them. We have to wait until Wednesday. Special guest Wednesday on Inside the Numbers, Winston Barris, the best dog ever. GOP approval rating now at 50%. That's 50-50. Democrats just shy, 53 disapprove, 47 approve. But only 1 in 3 voters approve of how Congress is doing their job. And honestly, that's kind of high compared to some other polls, but I'll believe it. I'll buy it. I wonder why. Wait, let me go back. In 2021, I guess they didn't ask people, or they didn't give the don't know choice, I guess. Anyway, RFK Jr., Musk, Haley, and Trump have the highest net favorability. And that's funny. Nikki Haley is +5, but that's because she has so many I don't knows. Look at Nikki Haley, by the way, when it comes to Republicans. Look at that. 37% negative. 37%. The I don't know is the only reason why she's positive. 39-42% of Democrats have a favorable opinion of Nikki. Of course, because she's demolishing the Republican primary. Donald Trump has a 30% very favorable. Holy crap. It's almost higher than is very unfavorable. Remarkable turnaround, whether you think it's slightly positive or slightly negative. The Yahoo News YouGov poll had Trump +1. That is one of his worst polls. The Economist is going to be shit all cycle. Quinnipiac University is going to be an outlier all cycle. The Marist poll is going to be an outlier all cycle. And the New York Times will be somewhere in between them and everyone else. I'm just telling you that so you understand it's coming. Monmouth, I don't even care about anymore, frankly. Monmouth poll is, the guy's out there. I had somebody who worked from Mark. That's who. I mean, Murray. That's his name. Mark Murray is NBC. Geez, I'm forgetting his name already. Doesn't matter. Irrelevant. Had somebody tell me that he 100% puts his finger on the scale. That was the word used. He thumb on the scale. That is exactly. So here's what we can see. Vivek is positive 5. That's interesting. Just thinking. Elon Musk positive 11. The country should see Elon Musk a lot more positive than this. The guy is literally going to save us from our sun exploding in the distant future. When people look back, they're not going to bring up some of these people unless history is allowed to be rewritten or erased. Elon Musk will be the guy who made sure we had the technology to live among the stars before it was too late. Donald Trump will be the guy, and I kid you not, Donald Trump will be the guy who put the telescope into space that allowed us to find planets with other life with life forms on them. Look it up. I'm not bullshitting. We never talked about it. All throughout his presidency, we never talked about it. It was huge. And that's why what's his name is such a disappointing scumbag. He was the acting administrator under Trump in the beginning for NASA. He gave them everything they wanted. I had people tell us on the Space Coast, right, Laura? We've been forgotten since they robbed us to fund Obamacare. We're only doing things like trying to travel between stars, but what the hell why prioritize that? Mock us. We have a lunar landing module. We'd like to build it. It'll help us get to Mars. For a bunch of forward-thinking progressives, they're awfully backward-thinking, awfully narrow-minded. The world's going to end in 12 years? Don't you think we should prioritize that instead? None of it even makes sense, Laura. The East Coast is going to be underwater. Manhattan should be underwater by now, according to Time Magazine. What happened in Miami? That's still afloat. Something wrong there. Key West. If you really believed what AOC claims to believe, and they all claim to believe, don't you think you would be trying to live mobily in the solar system? Or very narrow-minded indeed. Colonize Mars if the world's going to end in 12 years. Build a lunar landing module. Let's talk colonies. We won't get to the next system, but maybe our great-grandchildren will. You ever see Passenger, homie? That's what I'm talking about. Although if they do come up with a hyperpod, don't wake my ass up. I'll be mad. Think Jennifer Lawrence was pissed? Not if it's you, though, Laura. You can wake me up. I'll live my life on the ship with you, baby. Good enough for me. So here we go. The police, local police, usually FBI is positive, which is funny to me. But, not nearly as positive as they used to be. Palestinian Authority, super negative. Hamas, super negative. Antifa, super negative. China, super negative. Black Lives Matter squandered their popularity. They did. So did Fox News, who's basically just as popular as Fox now. CNN now. The Department of Justice headed in the wrong direction, boys and girls. Ukraine, NATO, whatever. Moving on. Immigration and inflation continue to be the top issues facing the country. Immigration even more so. We had immigration as the second top issue. Let's go down. Inflation and cost of living was our most important issue. At least not what voters told us. And I'm curious about independents real quick. I'm curious to see what they think. Whites chose inflation and cost of living. So did black voters more than anybody. But black voters, 11% of them, that was third, about tied with healthcare is a big deal for them too, though. The economy and jobs was second. Hispanics, it was all about inflation and cost of living. The economy and jobs was 2, and then the border was 3. Very close to the national average, by the way. With Hispanics, very close to the national average. But we had inflation and cost of living as number 1, and then 10 points behind that, immigration and border security. They have 36, 33 flipped. That's interesting. Very, very interesting. Inflation remains the dominant issue to voters, up 4 points from January. Okay, so which is most important to you personally? How do they word that here? Immigration top. Which would you say? What would you say are the most important issues facing the country? This almost looks like rank distribution to me, but it's possible. That's what we're talking about here, rank distribution. But they have an overall percentage. It's weird. And then inflation remains the dom. That's rank distribution. I'm telling you, it is. Which I love. I do. Inflation remains the dominant issue to voters overall. Immigration number 2. Now that looks closer to where we are. Only we had inflation and cost of living at 29 and immigration and border at 20. Very, very close. Crime, 11%. Where was crime on here? Far down the list, if I remember. Yeah, we had crime at 3. Crime and safety, 3.4%. That's it. I don't know where people get this stuff with crime. Abortion, that's very close. We had 8.3. They have 7. Interesting. Israel, which we put as a nothing. National security and foreign policy, 4%. Other altogether written was 2%. With a lot of people saying all the above, the country's headed in such a bad direction that's it. 3 and 5 say they want another choice other than Biden and Trump. Look, that's true if you were to poll it. That's true. And then people would say, but then why do we have these same candidates? Why do we have a rematch then? And I argue that myself. And the truth is, part of the answer to that question is the most interested in voters are the ones, the most interested base voters are the ones who pick nominees, which is why you see so many people crossing over for Nikki Haley. Most voters to vote Democrat, they wouldn't vote for her. In general, they'll vote for Biden, most of them. But most voters continue to say they would consider a moderate independent. Yeah, well, sure. That's a pointless question. They would. Bottom line is, what does the ballot say? What does the ballot test say? Yeah, this is a problem. A third of voters think that Biden will drop out before the convention. Something bad would have to happen, and I don't like saying it. Among Dems, though, Kamala Harris is the second choice. See, you can't just have Gavin Newsom leapfrog a non-white first non-white vice presidential candidate. You can't. With DeSantis out, Trump has increased his lead 78-14. Only 4% chose someone else. That's very close to what we had. We had 75-14, I think. Trump maintains his lead over Biden in the head-to-head. It's now Trump plus 6. It looks almost exactly like our poll. It does. First choice plus leaners. It's almost, and this is, we have 47-41, I think, right? Or 46-40. Yeah, 46-40. Then with leaners, basically exactly that. Close. It was like 53.4, something like that. Trump wins in a 3-way race. And by the way, yes, you would say, Rich, but I looked at the crosstabs, it's actually 54-46. Not if you round. They're rounding to the nearest whole number here. If you round to the nearest whole number with ours, Trump doesn't get to 54 either. Are you sure that's not a trunk? Anyway, it's mine. That's the win knocking the thing. Trump wins a 3-way race. Trump plus 7, Trump plus 7. This is very, very close to what we found. And when you add everybody, it's Trump plus 9. This is, Laura, maybe the shares of the vote aren't dead on, but the margins and the shares are very, very close. With the leaners, which we did, our leaners with the full ballot, and I guess we're going to stop, adding Lars Mapstead as the Libertarian. We've discussed this. We're just going to have another like someone else kind of candidate, I think. Or don't know. Yeah, something like that. But Lars may not even secure the Libertarian nomination. So We'll see. But we have Trump up 45-37 in the full ballot. They have Trump up 44-36. So very, very, very close. And that's with leaners. Extremely close. What did they have here? With just Kennedy. Let me look. With just Kennedy, we had with leaners. Oh, those are the leaners. Whoops. With leaners, we had 47. That's a generic. Which we are the only ones who do. A generic third party. All right. So we had 44-37. That's exactly what they have. 44-37-18. Because we had Kennedy with 9% of the vote, and the generic someone else also with 9, or 9.7 Kennedy. And a generic someone else at 9 with 8.6. So super, super close. I mean, it's really kind of remarkable how close it is. It is. Similar dynamics plays out when the 5 persons in the race. Okay. Biden now has a slight edge over Haley in a matchup between the two, but almost 1 in 5 are unsure. This is the appropriate thing you would see with somebody like Haley, who has still such a large, I don't know who the hell you are number. You have against an unpopular president. Both of their vote shares are going to fall, but Haley is going to fall more. January was Haley +3. Now it's Biden +2. These Haley +17s, 18s, 19s you're seeing in Marquette, those are artifacts of the poll themselves. That is the pollster having a flawed methodology and a flawed data collection mode. They don't know what to do with it. So when you have these dynamics, you could get a ridiculous result like that, especially if you're Marquette and that's your sole mode. You may notice the Wall Street Journal had an inflated number 4 or 2 months and months ago because they had leaned so much towards the live caller, adding things like peer-to-peer and SMS, a 10% chunk. That brought it down a little bit because they're reaching harder to reach voters with that. This is an online panel where you reach a lot, and it's very representative, and you can engineer basically the design of the sample. It's not completely left up to randomization. It's not left up to participation bias. You can account for it's in his methodology statement. That's why we reread it. You can account for participation bias, social biases, whole host of cognitive biases, and the problems with modes themselves that are specific. So Biden's too old to be president. This is a real problem. Real problem. 60% don't think I have doubts about his fitness. 41 say he's mentally fit. 67% are saying that he's too old. That's a major problem, guys. Major problem. Lowering the cost of prescription drugs. Really? I haven't seen that. Biggest failure is the border. Weak leadership abroad. Rampant immigration. Those are the 3 right there because they make for this feeling that things are just totally out of control. The border's open. A whole bunch of crap is going on. All these people are coming in and killing people, and they are. The world is on fire. What the hell did you do to the Abraham Accords? Palestinian conflict, the Russo-Ukrainian war. What is going on? Inflation is out of control. It's leading to this idea that things are just off the map crazy. And that is his Achilles heel. You think he's improving or getting worse? People think he's getting worse. There's a lot of people who don't. This is the power of the media. Even though people say they don't trust the media, Congressman Good's wife and I were having this conversation. Laura and her actually were having it, and I kind of just mosey on in. And they were talking about while the media isn't trusted, they still have the power to allow people to know something or not. There are people who are just ignorant, and that's the power the media has. They may not be particularly convincing anymore, but they can omit, they can hide, they can obfuscate. And you can see it right there. Almost 1 in 2 voters think yours conclusions were biased in favor of Biden. This is what people don't understand. The White House was pissed about how he wrote it out. Most people aren't going to think he took a dig at Biden. They're going to say he let him go again. Democrats always get let go. This is a serious problem. Do you think that his mental fitness or lack of mental fitness is an adequate or inadequate reason to not charge him or bring it before a grand jury? This is a bad number. 60% basically, 6 in 10 said, 59% said that is not an adequate reason enough to not have brought it before a grand jury. And then we went over this. They think he should be prosecuted. See? They think he did. They think he should. All right. So, and the concerns they think are valid. Yeah, all this about age. And we brought this up, and we're going to talk about Biden dropping out. He's winning the primary, and that's all. Yeah, it's rigged, but he's winning it, and that's all that matters. So I'm not sure any of this matters. People think Biden participated in his son's business. It's a good poll. You guys should go over it. It's a detailed poll. 55% think Hunter should serve jail time. Oh my God. And then there's going to be a lot about Trump too, that is, Democrats are engaged in using the legal system in biased ways to take out a political opponent. That's what voters think. Then that's it, Laura. So, the felony thing, but if he gets convicted, they're lying. If they think that, it's lying. It's, you know what I mean? Not a blocker. Do you think Donald Trump's league can make it impossible for him to be a viable candidate? Well, people are going to answer that based on whether or not he's going to spend time in court, spend money on cases, and still it's 54-46. Majority think it is a crime at some of them. Yeah, because you look at 91 counts, and honestly, folks, most people, even if they think it's political, are going to say there's got to be a crime in there somewhere, Voters are split on whether he'll be convicted. You and I, all of us watching now know Trump, if they move forward with trial, Trump's going to be convicted of something. And there it is, politically motivated, fair and unbiased, 46. They don't even think, they should ask if they're going to get a good trophy. Here's the thing, though. Trump is disciplined this time. This used to be not half and half, folks, whether or not he's improving or getting worse with his rhetoric. See, and despite everything, 56%, which is up from January, say that he's not a danger. He'll shake up the country for the better. 44% think he's a danger. All right, so there you go. And they don't even know about these rulings. They really don't know. Okay, because here they are giving them the context. And that, so they're saying, without telling them anything about it, you're just saying, do you think it was fair or not? 54 fair, 46 unfair. But then they tell them the deal. And then all of a sudden it's unfair. So, all right, I know it's 2:09. We got to kick rocks here. I would love to go over this poll in large context with you guys because it's cool. I like how they lay it out. It just makes it easy to go down and go through. But we can't, and I got to go. It's 2:10. Don't forget to like the videos if you like them. Share them far and wide. Share the public polling project as well. And we're going to kick off Georgia pretty soon. It'll happen pretty soon. So do what you can with it. What else? Am I missing anything, Laura? Oh, yeah. We're going to do an interview with Dan Baldwin, One American News. That'll be cool. That's Wednesday. We'll also have Sean Parnell on the show to talk about the smear merchants at PolitiFact. And I'll be on his, as always. But keep your eyes peeled to locals. And, we'll, of course, always tell you guys when we're popping on these shows. Locals, keep your eyes peeled for this thing about Michigan. We're going to talk about more. Okay. I got to put it out there now that I got the green light, so you understand what I'm saying when we go forward. With that in mind, I'm going to kick rocks, and I will see you guys on Wednesday. I don't think I missed it. Yeah. Rona's out after Super Tuesday. What can you say other than this? Nah, 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 nah. Hey, goodbye. All right. So with that in mind, I'm out. Deuces. Be safe. See you Wednesday. If I forgot anything, I'm sure Laura will let me know. Special thanks to my friend Larry Schweikart for coming on. Go check out his stuff. It's excellent. You will not regret it. All right, guys. Number love for you.